Program aid to Nigeria, the Central African Republic, and Cameroon due to funding constraints. Also, today we'll look at Nigeria's perspective as Nigeria secures 500 million renewable energy and gas export deal with Germany, $500 million. Former OpenAI CEO Sam Altman is in talks to rejoin OpenAI board. We begin from there. After the shock dismissal of Sam Altman, OpenAI directors are reportedly in talks for a possible reinstatement. Discussions are taking place between the former CEO and at least one board member, according to reports. Almost every staff member at OpenAI has threatened to leave unless Mr. Altman and co-founder Craig Brookman are reinstated. It's a conversation, as Microsoft, the biggest investor in OpenAI, has since offered him a job. According to reports, the artificial intelligence company is exploring various options, including bringing Mr. Altman back in his former position or as a board director. Let's talk about further stories from the European Saints. Binance Holding Limited and its chief executive officer, Changpeng Zhou, pleaded guilty to criminal charges for anti-money laundering and violating U.S. sanctions. Binance will pay over $4 billion in penalties, and Zhou will step down. Attorney General Merrick Garland spoke regarding this in Washington. Let's find out more.
With the powers that have been given to us by Congress by announcing the largest enforcement action in Treasury's history, more than $4 billion.
We are here today to announce that the Justice Department has secured felony guilty pleas from the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, Binance, and from its founder and CEO, Changpeng Zhou, also known as CZ. Separate from the criminal enforcement actions, the Justice Department is announcing today Secretary Yellen and Chairman Benham will also announce civil regulatory enforcement actions and the Treasury Department that the Treasury Department and the CFTC are taking against Binance. While criminal and civil enforcement actions are subject to different legal standards, this collective effort represents the whole of government approach that we are taking to combat corporate crime. Binance has agreed to plead guilty to willfully violating the Bank Secrecy Act, knowingly failing to register as a money-transmitting business, and willfully violating the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. These laws ensure that our financial institutions are not available to designated terrorist organizations, drug traffickers, and sanctioned nation-states that threaten public safety and our national security. The Justice Department is requiring Binance to pay $4.3 billion in penalties and forfeitures, using a monitorship, as well as reporting requirements on Binance as part of today's resolution. Moving forward, Binance must file the suspicious activity reports that were required by law. The company is required to review past transactions and report suspicious activity to federal authorities. This will advance our criminal investigations into malicious cyber activity and terrorism fundraising, including the use of cryptocurrency exchanges to support groups such as.
Meanwhile, the story around this conversation would be that comes from the U.S. Deputy Treasury Secretary Wale Adeyemo, who also spoke regarding the Binance situation, as Changpeng Zhou pleaded guilty to criminal charges for anti-money laundering and U.S. sanctions violation, including transactions with Hamas and other terrorist groups. Adeyemo also talked about what's next for Binance, as the U.S. Justice Department will still allow Binance to operate. He spoke on Bloomberg's balance of power, and let's get details on it.
We can do with the powers that have been given to us by Congress by announcing the largest enforcement action in Treasury's history, more than $4 billion against Binance, the largest virtual currency exchange, for their egregious violations of money laundering laws and also our sanctions violations. What this shows is that we do have strong tools, but given the evolution of this ecosystem, we also need new tools to deal with the challenges that they present for the U.S. economy when it comes to illicit finance. The actions that were taken that you outlined were egregious. They allowed groups like Hamas and others to be able to use Binance's network to move money that they used for the horrific actions that they've taken both in the Middle East, but other groups, including cyber criminals, have taken around the world as well.
1.1 million transactions involved Iran.
Meanwhile, Israel's cabinet on Wednesday approved a temporary ceasefire with the Hamas militants and the group, and that is expected to bring the first halt in fighting in a devastating 6-week war and win freedom for dozens of hostages held captive in Gaza Strip, in exchange for the release of Palestinians detained in Israeli prisons. The deal calls for a 4-day ceasefire, during which Israel will hold its military offensive in Gaza, while Hamas frees at least 50 of the roughly 240 hostages it held alongside other militants, according to Prime Minister's office. The first hostages to be released are women and children. Despite Netanyahu's tough words, the government said the truce will extend an extra day for every additional 10 hostages released. Let's find out more regarding this.
אנחנו מתמקדים כרגע בהגנה מאוד חזקה ומאוד יוזמת בצפון על מנת להשיג ניצחון מוחץ בדרום. יעד ראשון, חיסול החמאס. יש בחוץ דיבורי הבל. כאילו אחרי ההפוגה להשבת חטופינו, אנחנו נפסיק את המלחמה. אז אני מבקש להבהיר, אנחנו במלחמה ונמשיך במלחמה. נמשיך במלחמה עד שנס...
Quite offensive word there from the Prime Minister of Israel, talking about the war after the truce, that the war continues. Meanwhile, a statement released by Qatar, which mediates with Hamas, said the deal includes the release of a number of Palestinian women and children detained in Israeli prisons. The number of those released will be increased in later stages of implementing the agreement, and that it would allow additional humanitarian aid into Gaza. But the Israeli statement made no mention of either of these elements. The statement from Qatar's foreign ministry described the talks that produced the agreement as a mediation by Egypt, the United States of America, and Qatar for a humanitarian pause, adding that the start time of the truce will be announced within the day. Now in Africa. The United Nations World Food Programme said it will be forced to suspend aid to internally displaced people and refugees from Nigeria, the Central African Republic, and Cameroon in December. Declining financial support and escalating humanitarian demands are compelling the World Food Programme to make a harsh decision. From January, this suspension will be extended to 1.4 million people across Chad, including new arrivals from Sudan, who will not receive food as they flee across the border. Aid agencies scramble to respond to a fresh wave of refugees fleeing an unimaginable humanitarian crisis unfolding in neighboring Darfur. Amid reports of mass killings, rapes, and widespread destruction, the situation in Chad becomes increasingly dire. Over the past 7 months, more than 540,000 refugees have crossed from Sudan into Chad since the outbreak of the war between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, as reported by the International Organization for Migration. Still in Africa, South African business confidence fell in the fourth quarter, with new vehicle dealers' confidence reaching its lowest level since the onset of the coronavirus pandemic. A quarterly business confidence index jointly compiled by First Rand Limited, Rand Merchant Bank Unit, and Stellenbosch University Bureau for Economic Research revealed the business confidence index fell to 31 points in the fourth quarter from 33 points in the previous 3 months. Increased borrowing costs in Africa's third largest economy have restrained consumer spending. South Africa is facing a severe electricity crisis in 2023, surpassing the levels of power cuts experienced last year. In 2022, the country witnessed more than 200 days of power cuts, one of the worst years for blackouts in its history. Now in Nigeria. Nigerians have emerged as Canada's fastest growing international student population in the first half of 2023. This is according to a recently released report on Nigerian study permit trends in Canada, highlighting growing visa numbers and which provinces Nigerians are studying in. According to reports, the Canadian government issued just over 3,000 student visas to Nigerian nationals in 2019. By 2021, that number had doubled, and in 2022, it doubled again. Insufficient finances were cited as a refusal reason in 74% of study permit refusals for Nigerians in 2021 and 2022. Regarding the deal between Nigeria and Germany. Nigerian and German companies signed 2 accords in Berlin that include $500 million renewable energy pact and a gas export deal. The project will supply energy from Nigeria to Germany at 850,000 tons per annum, expanding to 1.2 million tons per annum. The first deliveries of the natural gas are set to begin in 2026. The signing of MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, was between Riverside LNG of Nigeria and Johannes Schwarz Energy Import AG of Germany on a gas export partnership, while the other signed pacts brought together Union Bank of Nigeria and DWS Group on cooperation in renewable energy. The agreement is intended to further strengthen economic ties between Nigeria and Germany, according to presidential spokesperson Ajuri Ngalale. Now to recent NBS report. The National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, has said that the average retail price of a litre of petrol increased from 195 naira in October 2022 to 630 naira in October 2023. It met the declaration in its recent petrol price watch for October 2023. It stated that the October 2023 price of 630 naira represented a 222.92% increase over the price of 195 naira recorded in October 2022. Analysis by zones showed that the Northeast zone recorded the highest average retail price in October 2023 at 644 naira, while the Southwest recorded the lowest price at 616 naira per litre. The NBS also stated in its diesel price watch and the report for October 2023 that the average retail price was 1,004 naira per litre. It said that the October 2023 price of 1,004 naira per litre amounted to 25.45% increase over the 801 naira per litre paid in October 2022. Meanwhile, the federal government has announced the launch of a portal for startups support and engagement. The portal, which is a key requirement of the implementation of the Nigeria Startup Act, is meant to drive the identification and aggregation of startups in the country. According to the federal government, in particular the Ministry of Communication, Innovation and Digital Economy, the Minister Dr. Bosun Tijani disclosed this on X. He highlighted that the launch of the portal will allow the government to initiate the process of setting up startup consultative forums to select representatives to the National Council for Digital Innovation and Entrepreneurship to facilitate discourse and consensus among ecosystem players. We'll go on a short break. When we return, it would be Business 360 continues. I'll continuing and we'll talk about intricacies of global economy and the markets. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It is Business 360 and my name is Blyden Okem. Now to global economy, beginning with the Bank of England. The Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey said inflation will end the year a bit lower than the central bank expected, but that risks were on the upside still. Bailey answered questions from the Parliament's Treasury Committee on the November Monetary Policy Report. Let's find out more.
Yes, I mean, it was obviously good news. Last week, I mean, it was largely news that we expected. I would say there was a small amount of extra news in it on services inflation, but it was largely news that we expected. And as we set out in the Monetary Policy Report 3 weeks ago, we expect a little bit more of what I would call these unwinding of last year's external shocks to come through. We're not going to get another one like last week, though. That's the last of those base effects to come through. But we think there's a bit more to come through. Certainly on food, I think there's a bit more to come through. And that will come through really by probably sort of the end of the first quarter of next year, probably a little bit beyond that. After that, I think we're unwinding really what I would sort of call more the sort of what we don't call the second.
In Africa, the National Bank of Angola raised its benchmark policy rates by 100 basis points to 18% during its regular meeting on November 21st, 2023, marking the first rate hike in over 2 years. The annual inflation rate in Angola accelerated for the seed strength month to reach a one-year high of 16.58% in October 2023, and it is projected to reach more than 20% next year, stoked by a reduction in fuel subsidies and a sharp depreciation in the Kwanza. The Kwanza is the currency of the country. So far this year, the Kwanza has depreciated by over 60% against the US dollar, following the central bank's decision to cease defending the currency as a result of low oil prices and greater debt payments in South Africa. South Africa's annual inflation rate rose for the third straight month to 5.9% in October 2023, the highest in 5 months and well above market estimates of 5.5%, verging on the upper limit of the South African Reserve Bank's inflation target range. Upward pressure came primarily from prices of food and non-alcoholic beverages, of which vegetables and milk, cheese and eggs, transportation, namely fuel, health, and restaurants as well as hotels, led the way. The annual core inflation, which excludes prices of food, non-alcoholic beverages, fuel, and energy, eased to a 14-month low of 4.4% in October, from 4.5% in the previous month, and almost in line with market forecast of 4.3%. Monthly consumer prices inched up by 0.9% in October, the steepest increase in 3 months, also surpassing market forecast of 0.5%. Quickly, let's move to the chart indicating South Africa's inflation rate this morning. The chart. According to Statistics South Africa, a report indicates by January this year, inflation in South Africa stood at 6.9%, quite high up there, increasing to 7.1% before beginning to slow down to 6.8% by April, and by July had dropped to a low of 4.7%. The last 3 months it's been on the high, increasing 5.9% by October. Amid all the concerns in South Africa, indicating increase in the cost of commodities in the past 3 months. On the other hand, a struggle for the rand, difficulty for the South African currency, the rand. Now to the markets, the commodity markets. Since Russia invaded Ukraine in late February 2022, natural gas volatility has been elevated, and the scope and complexity of geopolitical tensions has also only increased in the subsequent period. Many analysts are wondering what the tools are available to energy to manage their natural gas exposure. Also, looking at further stories, the WTI outlook would be the next story to talk about. WTI crude futures steadied around $78 per barrel today as traders look ahead to an OPEC Plus meeting this weekend. Oil prices climbed more than 6% since Thursday on speculation that a group of major producers may deepen supply cuts at the upcoming meeting to boost their prices. Industry data showed that U.S. crude inventories jumped by about 9 million barrels last week, much higher than market expectations for a 1.5 million barrels build. Investors also remain cautious about the prospect of weaker demand and a global economic slowdown, with traders watching for key economic indicators out of the US and China, two of the world's largest oil consumers. Let's move to the market and see what the price for the energy market would be, and afterwards the metals and agricultural market, the commodities. The energy market first. According to market data coming out this morning, a crude oil price, which is the US crude, West Texas Intermediate, now is $77 0.6 point, a negative 0.79% drop. Market is moving quite fast. Brent, which is Nigeria's price benchmark, is also downward by 0.54 points. $81 per barrel is the price. Quickly, let's look at the metals. The price of gold upward by 3.12 points, 0.16% appreciation. And the price of gold is $2,001, moving away from the 1,900 mark. Silver price slightly upward this morning, 0.56% appreciation, $23 per ounce. Copper downward, steel price downward by 33 points, and that is the story from the metals. Looking at agricultural commodities, price of soybeans downward by 11.25 points, negative 0.8% decline, $1,366 per bushel. Wheat price gaining 1.92 points this morning, $556 per bushel. Lumber downward by 5 points. Palm oil gaining 41 points, 3,994 Malaysian ringgit per ton is the price of palm oil. Well, for the commodities, it's been the outlook. Looking at FX market and the updates, top currency losers this morning are South Korean won at a negative 0.77%, Japanese yen negative 0.62%, and Norwegian krone a negative 0.58%. There were also gains by the dollar index in addition. But quickly, let's look at the market, what the price is for Naira in the market. Quickly, a Naira against the US dollar has been 816 Naira at that point. But let's go to the paro market and see what the exchanges are saying this morning. The paro market and what the prices are in the paro market this morning. The dollar to Naira buying rate 1,146 Naira and selling rate 1,138 Naira. A pound to Naira 1,417 Naira at the buying rate and selling rate 1,392 Naira. The euro to Naira, a buying rate 1,217 Naira and selling rate 1,198 Naira. It's been that of mixed fortune for the cryptocurrency market as the outlooks are different this morning. But here we draw the curtain in today's edition of Business 360. Thank you for being a part of it. My name is Vladimir Kim. Thank you for watching.